Well, current polling has support for independence in Scotland at about 40%, and a recent Daily Record poll found that 60% wanted Ms Sturgeon to drop her plan for another referendum now. Well, Ian Blackford is the SNP's new leader in the House of Commons. Welcome, thanks for joining us. Did the opinion polls on independence play a part in Nicola Sturgeon's decision, do you think?
No, I think what we've done today is we've reset the timing on when an independence referendum may take place. But if we look at where we are, the SNP has won the last 3 Scottish elections. We've just won the Westminster election, 35 seats out of 59. I know we've lost some seats from 2015, but we're still a remarkably popular party and a remarkably popular government in Edinburgh. But we need to reflect the circumstances throughout the United Kingdom. And I think now that we have a minority government in the UK, I would argue there's no longer a majority for a hard Brexit. What we need to push for is the ability to represent Scotland's interests in the talks that are going to take place.
I mean, it's not just... you overreached yourself. You thought in the heady days after the referendum last year that this was your moment for a second go. And actually, the polls, if anything, have drifted away from independence, and you've just looked at the polls, haven't you? It's obvious.
What happened last year, Evan, is that we went with a manifesto seeking the support of the Scottish people if there was to be a material change in circumstances, that we wanted the option to put a referendum that the people
of Scotland... Well, then why don't you push for a referendum then? You're now breaking your own manifesto.
No, we're not, because circumstances have changed. Our immediate priority is to protect the interests of Scotland, and that means staying in the single market. It means remaining within the customs union. And there's going to be an opportunity over the course of the next period to push for that. So
that's the change in circumstances. The change in circumstances is you can now fight for the soft Brexit you want.
Absolutely, and we will seek to effect a compromise.
You couldn't have done that before the general election.
Well, the UK government didn't seem to want to compromise with us. The government in Edinburgh published a document last December, a compromise document, where we recognised that the UK had voted to come out of Europe, but we also sought the recognition from Westminster of our position. We haven't had a meeting of the Joint Ministerial Committee since February. That has to happen. Right. And Westminster and Theresa May has got to respect...
Okay. So just to be clear, I just want to summarise, it was nothing to do with the polls showing a decline in support for independence.
I mean, you stated that support for independence is down at 40%. There are other recent polls that actually show it higher than that.
But when you average them, you find that it has declined, because there were some showing it at 49.
Let me say, we will always listen to the people of Scotland.
Right.
We understand that we did less well than perhaps we did in 2015. We want to demonstrate to the people of Scotland that we are worthy of their trust, and the immediate priority is to protect the interest of the people of Scotland by making sure we can stay within the single market.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's your case. That's your case.
It is, but if I may say so, a referendum should be seen as an insurance policy in Scotland being dragged out of the single market against its will.
Can I ask you, if you hate the Brexit that Theresa May is leading us or taking us towards, do you have the power to shout from the sidelines, very loudly and prominently, to delay or to obstruct?
I think what the people, not just of Scotland but the United Kingdom, want is to see politicians working together. And we're offering to the government to get round the table to see if we can represent the interests of those of us, like us in Scotland and in Northern Ireland, that seek to have access to the single market.
Is it your understanding that if Theresa May doesn't play it like you want to play it, that you have the power to delay or obstruct the Brexit that she wants?
It is the case.
By, for example, not voting for the Great Repeal Bill or the elements that affect Scotland.
But of course that will happen in Westminster, that we have opportunities to influence the debate, and we will seek to do that on a cross-party basis. But there will also be a legislative consent motion that has to be presented to the Scottish Parliament. But we're not talking about threatening anybody.
No, but I want to just know whether ultimately in your back pocket is something that can threaten, and it sounds like you don't have it. I know the British government doesn't think you have it, but you don't. Sounds like you don't think you have the power to stop it either.
We are going to have a legislative consent motion, but I'm not in the business of wanting to threaten anybody. Right. If it is the case...
But you do have, and what's your understanding if you refuse to consent for the legislative consent motion?
If I may say, if we end up in a situation that we are dragged out of the single market and there's a threat to our economy, a threat to jobs and prosperity, then we need to have the option of giving that referendum right to the people of Scotland. That's the ultimate power that we have.
So can I be clear, will there be a second referendum before, say, 2021, if Britain adopts a softer Brexit than Theresa May's been talking about?
Because what we're talking about is a referendum if there's a material change in circumstances. If Scotland's position in the single market can be protected, one would argue
and if it can't be protected, there'll definitely be a referendum.
I think under those circumstances, it's only right that the people of Scotland, just like...
So there definitely will be one, or you will definitely require one.
I think
if we're not in the question. Well, I just don't want to waffle. I want
I'm not going to waffle, but the point is that at the end of the Brexit process, every member state of the EU is going to have a vote. It's surely right and proper that the people of Scotland are offered that opportunity as well. That's the point. It's about making sure that we have a parachute, if you like. We can protect ourselves against a hard Brexit. That's the salient point.
So there will be a referendum if we're out of the single market. You will request a referendum, and you would do it before 2021.
We would need to move as quickly as possible as we could at that point.
Look, let's just very, very briefly finish by talking about the DUP deal, because I think you've said Scotland has been shortchanged by money being sent to Northern Ireland.
I don't think this is a very good deal for the Union and the United Kingdom, because what you've got, in effect, is that the Conservative government is buying votes from the DUP with a £1 billion bribe. That's what it amounts to. What we had over the course of the weekend...
But how are you being shortchanged by that?
David Mundell, the Secretary of State for Scotland, made it clear that there had to be Brexit. There had to be consequentials from this DUP deal. Now, that should happen across the United Kingdom. If we were being treated on an equivalent basis to what's happening with Northern Ireland, that would be an additional investment in Scottish public services and infrastructure of £2.9 billion.
But that's a bit unfair on the English taxpayers, probably, isn't it? Because it probably means another £30 billion for the English taxpayers as well, doesn't it?
But you have to treat all parts of the United Kingdom on an equal basis.
Right, but the English would clearly not be treated on an equal basis if that was the case, would they?
Let me say to you that in the election campaign, we argued that austerity is not working. It's taking cash out of the pockets of the poorest. We argued for an investment of £118 billion over the course of the Parliament, balancing the books, but making sure that we deliver
a... Why do you want to leave? You'll get nothing if you left. Your goal is to leave the United Kingdom. You get none of this. You'd get 70 million of oil money.
We want to be a progressive force in Parliament, and what we argued for was investment right across the United Kingdom. We're not playing one part of the United Kingdom off against each other. It's the UK government that's done that with this shoddy deal.
Ian Blackford, thanks very much. Thanks.
Thank you.